Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Crendor, and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where we make top 10 lists out of pointless things, where we fly by this pointless statue in Booty Bay, because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 is the World's End Tavern in Shattrath, and this is a possible reference to the actual World's End Tavern in North London and Camden. And according to their website, Charles Dickens ate there, so that's pretty crazy. But the World of Warcraft version doesn't have Charles Dickens. It has Harris Pilton, and I'm sure if you've been to the World's End Tavern or even just played Burning Crusade at some point, you've probably gone here and been like, whoa, it's Harris Pilton, right? It also has a high elf woman named Zephyr, and if you talk to her and you're revered with the Keepers of Time, you can transport to the Caverns of Time, which I never actually knew, but that's probably because I'm not revered with the Keepers of Time, so it checks out. Then the Elite Tauren Chieftain will play there every 4 hours on the hour, and Perry Gattner also does stand-up comedy here every day, and he does some really terrible jokes, such as, how many kobolds does it take to change a lantern wick? You know, take candle. What's the deal with kobold candles? But in terms of the actual tavern aesthetic, it's nothing too crazy. It's got some generic tables and rugs, it's got a stage, it's got some bear rugs and kegs, and so I was like, you know, it's okay. And that's why I decided to put it at number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Laughing Crane, which is a local tavern on the Wandering Isle in Mists of Pandaria. And one interesting fact about this tavern is that although it has an innkeeper, the player does not accumulate rest while inside, unlike most inns, which is pretty crazy. Like, you would think you'd get rest XP for being here. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's because it's a new player area. But at the same time, Razor Hill and those places have inns you could get rest at. So I have no idea. But either way, if you talk to the innkeeper, she says, ever since my husband came back, we've been really able to expand the place. We've even put in a brewery upstairs staffed by some of the most nice monks from the temple. So I was like, yo, this place is cool. It's a tavern and a brewery. And I guess it would also be an inn. I think you can stay here. Because a tavern is a place where you go to drink, but an inn is a place where you go to drink and spend the night. So technically, all inns are taverns, but not all taverns are inns. This is just like Turtle and Tortoise. But I really love the aesthetic of this place. It's very cozy. It has a bunch of lanterns and kegs. They got grills. They have these big tables with like a rice cooker in the middle, or I don't know if they're cooking soup. It's bubbling over, whatever it's doing. It's just a very cozy environment. And my only complaint would be it feels a little too spacious at times. Like there's just lots of empty areas that feels like it should have tables or just something there. So that was the only downside, but overall it's pretty cool, and that's why it's number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Thunder Brew Distillery in Keranos, and it's probably one of the most well-known taverns in World of Warcraft, but it also has some of the craziest background story for the owners of it in World of Warcraft. So Grimboo's Thunder Brew used to be the owner or part owner, and when you talk to Ragnar Thunder Brew in Classic WoW, he says, welcome to the Thunder Brew Distillery, founded by dear old Pappy Archelaus Thunder Brew. I've been keeping the place running ever since my older brother Grimboo's disappeared in a drunken haze a few harvests ago. And it turns out he is in Westfall, and there's a big quest where you help him make beer in Westfall. And then in Wrath of the Lich King, he actually goes to join Hemet Nessingwary in Sholazar, where he tries to craft his Jungle Punch, which is the Kungaloosh that you help him craft in Sholazar. But then, at Brewfest, in Battle for Azeroth, Ragnar participates in the tapping of the keg alongside Maiev Barley Brew. During their speech, Ragnar claimed that his father, Grimbooz, founded Brewfest. So at some point, they must have retconned Grimbooz to be the father of Ragnar, and now they used to be brothers, but now it's his father, so it's weird, I don't know, but either way, the actual tavern itself is fantastic. I know I just ranted about the owners for like a minute, but who cares? This is a pointless top 10, all right? You know what you were getting into. They got the barrel vases, they got the food on the table, they got the animal heads on the wall, they got the stone fireplaces. It's just a very rustic and cozy environment, and I really love that about this tavern, right? Everything's kind of compact and stone, and there's the snow outside, which I think really amplifies everything, knowing it's like snowy and cold outside. And then you go in and it's just a nice warm fire and the ale and just everybody, you know, standing around having a good time. It's great. And so that's why the Thunder Brew Distillery is number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Deepwater Tavern at Menethil Harbor in the Wetlands. And the reason I picked this one is because it's a standard human tavern, which I wanted to put on the list, but it's a bit more unique, I guess, because it's actually flooded everywhere. So during the flooding of Menethil Harbor during the shattering, the tavern was barely saved due to being on slightly higher ground than the surrounding area and being protected at the front by a wall of sandbags. Since the disaster, the tavern appears to function as normal, with the sandbags being used as a bench by locals and riding rams and stable master outside seeming tolerant of the water. But I think my favorite interaction is happening outside, which is these two dwarves, and they say, "Flood's not so bad. Not as bad as the ones we've had in Ironforge. Aye, you mean the one you caused? You watch your tongue, you blootered chuff. That was an honest mistake. You put a floodgate on a channel from the inside and trapped yourself. An honest mistake. And then you tunneled from the channel straight into a dining hall. We were finding carp behind the furniture for weeks. Well, at least the ale was safe. And I didn't even know this, but apparently this is a reference to Dwarf Fortress. I haven't really played much Dwarf Fortress, but I know a lot of people have, so there you go. But aside from all that, I do love the inn. Obviously, it's a very human-style inn, just like in Goldshire. I think a lot of people are probably like, the Goldshire Tavern, but I wanted to go a little bit off the grid. That's what I do with Pointless Top 10. I get a little crazy, a little wacky, like this rat. He's not in Pointless Top 10 rats, but he could have been. He's a great rat. But I love the kegs, the fireplace, you know, just the homey aesthetic of the human inn. And that's why the Deepwater Tavern is number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Salty Sailor Tavern in Booty Bay. And to me, this is one of the most unique types of taverns because it's literally a boat tavern, right? I mean, if you go up top to Baron Revelgaz and Fleetmaster Seahorn, they're literally standing on the bow of a ship. It is the bow of a ship, right? At the front of it. I think it is. But it's a really cool tavern, and it gives me nostalgia a bit, because I always think of coming here with Booty Bay. Like, this is one of the first things I think of when I think of Booty Bay is this tavern, because even if you don't want to go to the tavern, you do kind of have to go through it to get to the upper parts of Booty Bay and, you know, get a bunch of quests here. So this kind of is the heart of the city. I think it's always really cool that you have to like climb up the ship, and then there's like the pirate bridge on the inside you have to run along, which I always thought was a cool thing. There's the innkeeper that can like barely see over the counter, and if you talk to him, he says, "Hey, come in. Just don't sit too close to the stove. It hasn't exploded yet today, but just to be safe, I think you should sit elsewhere." But honestly, it kind of gives me Rainforest Cafe vibes. You know what I mean? It's like a themed tavern type thing. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot going on in terms of like people drinking or hanging out. It's just a lot of like pirate guys standing around. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's just a cool design for a tavern. There are cockroaches upstairs, but you know, what do you expect in Booty Bay, right? So that's why the Salty Sailor Tavern is number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Drunken Drummer, which is a tavern located in Dazara Lore. And this is actually a really cool tavern I didn't really know about. It's a tavern that just has a bunch of drums, and you can actually go up to them, you can bang the drums. So I guess here you just get drunk and bang on the drums. But they got, you know, a bunch of different types of drums. They got orcs, and they got even a goblin drum. There's Bilgewater Speculator here, and he's just like, "Hey, they even got one of our drums. Who says goblins ain't got no culture?" They got some weird looking jar. I don't know what that thing is. There's this troll guy who's like hiding in the trees. There's like some other trolls that are just having some drinks out by a table outside. I think what I love most about this tavern is just how unconventional it is, right? When you think tavern, you're like, all right, there's some people sitting around drinking, whatever. But like, everyone's just drumming. They're just getting drunk and drumming. Like, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. There's really nothing else about it. There's no like crazy lore or anything, but that's good enough for me to put it at number 5. 4. Number 4 is the Hops, Line, and Sinker Brewery, which is a tavern located in northern Borealis. One thing that I learned from researching all this is there are about 30 taverns in Borealis. There's no shortage of places to drink in Borealis, I'll tell you that much. But the reason I picked this one is I felt like it was the best of all the taverns, clearly. I didn't even mention that the actual name, Hops, Line, and Sinker, is just a funny play on words. It's supposed to be like hook, line, and sinker, but they're saying hops like beer, you get it? Ha ha! But out of all those taverns, this one felt like it had the most going on. You had the bards singing by the fire, you have people drinking at the bar, you got people taking kegs and drinks all over the place. They actually have an outside area, so there's an outside bar, which is fantastic. There's the fish on the wall, you got the people playing Hearthstone. It's just, this place feels like an actual restaurant, you know what I mean? And I love that. And as I've been saying this entire video, it's very cozy. So that is why the Hops, Line, and Sinker is number 4. 3. Number 3 is the Grim Guzzler, and I felt like I had to put the Grim Guzzler on the list because not only is it the place you go to during Brewfest, but it's just a giant tavern that's one of the oldest taverns in the game at this point. The Grim Guzzler is located deep inside Blackrock Depths, and it's part of the Shadowforge city, lying just beyond the manufactory and before the Chamber of Enchantment. The tavern is a large 2-level area filled with mostly inebriated patrons. These patrons should remain neutral to adventurers unless they get aggravated. much like real life. Something I actually learned from reading about the Grim Guzzler is that there was supposed to be a Shadowforge mole machine and the Grim Guzzler invasion in the Zaralek Cavern, but I guess that never happened, so that kind of sucks. That would have been really cool. But I mean, overall, I think the Grim Guzzler is probably one of the most notorious taverns in all of Azeroth, and now I actually use the term notorious right because I realized that in previous Pointless Top 10s, I've been using it wrong all along. I've been trying to call things notorious when actually I should have been using more words like infamous or prominent, which I think I did a couple times, but still, I'm learning grammar thanks to this YouTube series. And that's why the Grim Guzzler is number 3. Number 2 is Torga's Tavern, and Torga's Tavern's an underwater tavern located northeast of Torga's Rest in Nazmir. And up above the tavern, you got these little floating lights and all the seaweed and stuff and the kelp, and then down below, you have the actual tavern. And there's actually quite a few underwater taverns in Battle for Azeroth, but after looking through all of them, I thought this was probably my favorite one. I mean, I love the sand shell servers. They're these sea turtles that just float around carrying people's drinks on their backs. There's a siren named Cyrene located in the Torga Tavern, and she's just performing her siren song, and it is something, all right. I'd suggest going and listening to it. But I think what I love most about this tavern is just how much flavor and character it has, right? Like, I think even a lot of the other underwater taverns I went to, I was like, you know, these are cool, but some were a little too small, some were a little too big, some were weird. I felt like Torga's Tavern really had the best overall vibe and atmosphere and the right size to it. And so that's why I put Torga's Tavern at number 2. And number 1 is the Speed Barge Bar. And the Speed Barge Bar is where the old Thousand Needles Raceway used to be. And now it's just a bunch of goblins and gnomes getting drunk. The bartender is Daisy, and she used to be the race girl to like wave the flag when the gnomes and goblins were racing each other. And her name is actually likely a pun to Daisy Dukes, because she's also wearing Daisy Dukes. The chairs here can actually not be used by players nor by the NPCs. The latter are standing on them rather than sitting. And players can actually buy a bottle of grog from the innkeeper and use it to start a bar fight. But pretty much after I did all my research on all the taverns, I felt like this was the most pointless top 10 number 1 choice I could have made. Like, there's just chaos going on with the gnomes and goblins. There's weird fish sandwiches and weird electronic grills. Some of the gnomes are running at like super speed. Like, what are they doing? The guy's going like 800 miles an hour. He must have harnessed the old Tarn planes running ability. It's just, this place is just true chaos, and I love it. And it's just in the middle of nowhere. I feel like a lot of people forgot that this place even exists. You know what I mean? And so that's why the Speed Barge Bar is number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Pointless Top 10. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, if you want to watch more Pointless Top 10s, we just had Pointless Top 10 Pirates last week. That kind of ties into some taverns. Also, you can check out Pointless Top 10 Rats, because I mentioned that in this video. Also, consider supporting the channel. We have patreon.com/Crendor, or you can become a channel member and get access to monthly Q&As. Okay? Okay. See ya.